Good evening, everyone. It is September 5th, 2018, 7 p.m. We have our regular Ottawa City Commission meeting. Let's start with the roll call, please.
Mayor Skidmore,
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Present.
Commissioner Wygant,
Present.
Commissioner Kaler, Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
We do have a quorum, so thanks everybody for being here tonight. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Reverend Ernest Jones of Bethany Chapel Baptist Church. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for this opportunity to bring before this body the agendas of this wonderful city. God, I ask that you would be with everyone here that will make those decisions. Let it be inclusive of all of those that reside here in this place. Be with us, watch over their lives, watch over their families, and everyone that's a part of this body. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Jones. Let's go on with the item number 6 would be the minutes from the August 13, 2018 study session, the August 15th regular meeting, the August 20th, 2018 special call for the Butterfly Mural Project ribbon cutting, and the August 20th, 2018 study session. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second and a second, so let's go with that. You pick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Usually this is the time for public comments. I know we have some public comments, but I think we'll wait till we reach those agenda items to bring you up to the microphone, if that's okay. So we'll wait till we get to those times a little bit later on. Move on to item number 9. This is a declaration. I'd like to give this time to the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. We're all good there? Okay. Move on to item number 10. Amy.
Recognition and presentation of retirement plaque to Scott Bird.
City Manager Richard, go ahead.
So if I could have Bev and Scott Bird join me up here. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, would you come around, please? I will. So as you know, it has not been a well-kept secret, but Mr. Bird has decided to retire. 27 years? 37. Okay, 37, but 27 years in City Hall. That's correct. Right? So he came to work for City of Ottawa 37 years ago out at the power plant, right? And there's a little infamous kind of sleight of hand he did out there, which we won't review here now, but we'll let others talk about the urban legend. But I will. Well, yeah, there it is. There's a clue. It'll be on the next bingo card. So Scott came to City Hall 27 years ago. He's actually worked in Old City Hall, and he's worked in New City Hall, and has been our city clerk, been our director of finance, and he's decided that it is time for he and Bev to spend some more time kind of out on the road, kind of traveling, being retired, missing all those calls that he won't be getting about the city, which I know will do. So we appreciate what you've done. We appreciate you being here all these years. It is, there's not too many people who can say they had a career that long with one organization these days. So we appreciate you for being a sticker and a stayer. We have a small token of our appreciation, which most people get plaques, but as you know, we visited with you and you told us what you didn't want, so that meant that we had to kind of look at something else. And while that is, I thought about giving you the walking stick that my uncle had carved, but so far I can't find any lineage where we're related, so it just wouldn't have been as good as that. So thanks for trying. So seriously, Scott and Bev, thank you for serving this community to the best of your ability. So I think the mayor would like to say something, and then You can have the opportunity to say something, but 3 minutes.
I'll say a few words from up here. How about? Well, I've known Scott, in fact, I've known Bev just as long too, back in high school days, so it's been great to have you both here. I'll leave that out. I'll leave it out and leave it on the guessing game. But anyway, we do appreciate Scott. I tell you what, he's been done a marvelous job here. I laughed about the last budget he presented. I did say that he actually is the only person I know that can make a budget hearing exciting, and you certainly did with all your detail and good work on the budget. So congratulations, Scott, on many, many years of wonderful service to our community. Bev, thank you for supporting them too. Would you like to say a few words, Scott, please?
All I really want to say is thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to be part of the city of Ottawa all these years, and I'm looking forward to some time off. And my wife has even said that she's looking forward to having me around, so we'll see how long that lasts.
Good sign.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Great. Thanks, Scott. So just beware when Scott takes a walk, he's taking his stick. Don't come too abruptly to him, right? It's beware. Okay, we know that now. Thank you, Scott. We'll move on to item number 11.
A public hearing for the purpose of considering condemnation of a single-family structure located at 420 South Locust.
This public hearing has been called for the consideration of condemnation of a single-family structure located at 420 South Locust. City staff will present the details of this request for condemnation. We'll open the hearing, and we'll start with Mr. Jim Sherman.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Back in July, we had a resolution set to hold a public hearing for this structure. Staff has received a petition by area neighbors around the dwelling. It's been a structure of ours that we've addressed for about 4 or 5 years on and off, dilapidation, condition, exterior. I think I've got a few photos here to show you this. Some of these were photos I took for the last presentation, showing the backyard. There has been some work by the owner in the last few weeks to cleaning up some of the area of the backyard, mostly the vegetation, some of the loose items. There's still some of the boards still sitting there, but it's much more open than it shows right here. I think of a recent photo from this morning. This is another exposure of the dwelling. This is a north exposure, and that would be Locust Street that you can see in the background. This is another view of the front of the dwelling. The porch is in pretty substantial deterioration. A lot of rot and decay. As we recapped before, there's other elements of the structure. The masonry chimneys have been falling down for years. There's substantial roof leakage because if you walk up to the windows, you can see ceilings that have collapsed inside. This is today in reference to the photo, so much more of the vegetation has been cleared. Some of the building material that's been removed on the outside is stacked up. And there's a view of the front, still pretty much in the same condition as we took photographs in July. Thanks. Thanks, Wendy. The check of still, the utilities have been off since 2014, and we contacted the county, and the taxes are still delinquent back to 2014. It's been unoccupied since before 2014. We continue to have conversations with neighbors of vermin, pests entering the dwelling. A lack of habitability makes it an eyesore and an attractive nuisance for others. As we just witnessed, talking to you recently about the King Street house, another dilapidated structure that's an attractive nuisance, and these sometimes do cause an undue situation like a fire, or sometimes we find that the first responders have to arrived due to an injury because children may be playing. We'd like to have you consider one of two options, either renovation under a timeline or considered demolition of the structure. I really don't have a whole lot else to bring up, just other than this has been something that we've been keeping an eye on for a couple of years. Not long after I arrived on staff, I did a review of some of the outstanding structures, and this is one of them. And since the neighborhood has reached out to us with the petition, we felt it prudent to bring it forward to your consideration tonight. I'll answer any questions or see if I can help you before we hear some of the neighbors.
Have anybody questions?
Have there been any building permits pulled on the property?
No, not yet. The owner, I think, is here tonight. Last summer, about a year ago, August, an application submitted to just address just the front porch, but there were some parts of the permit that weren't resolved, and so the owner stepped back, and we haven't heard since that time. I know the owner's been over there for a few weeks now, cleaning up some of the environs, but that's the level of our interaction. Our building inspector had stopped by and talked to him one day, but there's been no new application for building permits.
Okay. Any other questions, anybody?
Jim, have you, you said since 2014, this has been a concern, and you have been in touch with the owner over the years, or just recently?
My only contact with the owner was last summer when he submitted an application to repair the porch, the front porch of the dwelling. That's been my only interaction. Other than that, I've not had any conversations. Typically on something like this, one of our staff inspectors, either our property maintenance or building inspector, visits the site or sends off the notice to make some kind of correction, then it's handed over to me for other resolution. But we haven't heard from the owner since the notices have come out.
Okay.
There's been no contact with us.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, James.
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Anyone else want to comment? This would be the time to speak up. Please come forward.
I'm the owner.
Okay, come on up to the microphone and state your name and address.
My name is Kent Pettyjohn,
Okay.
Pettyjohn. I live at 4421 South Lane Street, Olathe, Kansas, 66061. I have quite a bit to go through here, but it appears that there may be a way to shorten this presentation with myself, is that Jim Sherman mentioned that an option to condemnation is a commitment to renovation, and I have that commitment to be made. Now, what Mr. Sherman didn't say was, when I submitted a building permit last year for the porch problem, he told me that you had to live in the residence for 12 months before you could get a permit, which is impossible if you want to fix a place up to move into. I brought the former owner's son with me, who was there present at the time I was told that. I was going to do some work on that property, a limited amount with the porch and the items that he had mentioned in the dilapidation. I had only been notified once ever about any problem that the city had with the property, and that was in July of last year. So I had a list of items to address and resolve. So I took and halted a project that I was working on and went down, and I was going to try to do work for 1 week and get that resolved, what the list was, then go back and finish the other project, and then come down and do renovation. But after he told me that I had to live in the house for 12 months, I just kind of gave up on that and moved on to the next project. And I thought, well, we'll get down there and solve that later, because I don't know what the deal is. I did review some of the ordinances, and I could find nothing in any of the ordinances that said that. But I do plan on renovating, and if you want to see evidence of that, or if you would rather me work with Mr. Sherman on evidence of that, I'm happy to do that. But if you wish to move forward with the condemnation, because I guess the reason is that it's uninhabitable, and then I will be happy to address that issue. I believe it's up to you which issue we want to address.
Well, let's start with, are you a contractor, or have you hired a contractor as a general for this project?
No, but if you'd like to see my resume, I can present you one.
Okay. That was just another first question. And financing been arranged for your rehab project?
Let me pull this out here. Like I said, I have quite a few notes in here. And the taxes are paid in full, So that did happen. So
Is that recently?
Yeah, today. Yeah, I
Okay,
think it was like
okay.
$3,000 or something like that.
All right.
But I have a receipt somewhere in my receipts if you would like to see that.
That's fine.
No?
Um,
Would you like to see the resume? Would you like to see the previous building permit application?
Yes.
Let's,
Uh,
let's
I've only got
start with
one
here.
extra copy
That's right,
here.
we start right here.
Here, this is an outline of what took place. This is a list of the items that they gave me in last July, or whatever it was. That's the items that they gave me a list of. Here's a building permit application in an effort to resolve that. They wouldn't let me get a permit. Here's a list of the contractors that, he gave me a list of contractors that I could possibly work under. But I made about 5 calls, had no luck with that. Here's a list of the email I sent Mr. Sherman, and he did not respond to. Here's a list of my, this is like the most recent resume I have, which is actually close to a decade old. But it was a certified resume, and on my letterhead that I sent, I certified this again. Here's a list showing my financing available, which is cash on hand, not financing from anybody, it's my own money, in excess of $100,000 if I want to play with it. And here's a 20-page estimate of what's been planned for quite a while now.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it. Okay, well, let's look this over. I guess I have a couple questions. Richard or Jim, can you address that as far as the 12-month residency? Is that a requirement? Is that accurate?
No, what we say is typically residency is established for the following year, so we can, that prevents somebody from flipping.
But, Mr. Sherman, nothing precludes the owner from working on the house and fixing it up regardless of whether they're going to live there or not, right?
No, the information stated by the owner is inaccurate with the conversation that took place with staff.
Okay.
That is not the conversation that took place. And I can have our permit tech testify that if you'd like, but that's not the information that took place. And I did return the email because I actually called.
Instead
If
of
I
the
can
email?
call somebody and said email them back, I always find that's more efficient process.
And-
And in that phone call, I described to the owner that you have to either give us some kind of notification you're gonna live in the dwelling, which he said he's not going to live in the dwelling. He wanted to fix it up. I said, well, you have to have a contractor in. And as a good customer service, I produced a list of the contractors for him. Said, please get back with me if you have any options. We can be glad to help you. The conversations here are not actually what the staff was doing, that's all. And I find it odd that it takes certified notices to generate some kind of action from the owner. The taxes were paid this afternoon for years. The staff has been working to resolve it.
And,
Taxes relevant to
and,
this?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
and Mr. Sherman, if you're not living there, you have to be a licensed contractor to fix it up, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I would also point this out to the commission, that one of the reasons, this is an unusual action we're taking in the sense that this has been generated by a petition out of the neighborhood who is sitting in the audience. And they have lived with this for a number of years, came to visit me earlier this year, and I put them in contact with Mr. Sherman. And they brought, in our ordinance, it provides for the neighborhood petitioning for the city to do something about a structure that is a nuisance to the neighborhood. So I think that's an important point for you to remember, and I hope you hear from the neighborhood.
Okay. Just a couple of more questions, Mr. Pettijohn. I know this is kind of like a ninth inning coming together with all of your information here. Is there any reason why we didn't get started sooner on this project, like months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago?
Well, probably just being lazy at the time. I took a few months off and did nothing after working pretty steady, so, and I can afford to do that, but that had nothing to do with this project itself.
And it does look like you've got the cash available. I guess I was looking at the total, okay, total about 27,000. You think it's
Yeah,
gonna take?
and there should note on there, that's not complete. It's probably going to be in excess of 30, I'm sure.
All right.
But there's, I still have a couple costs that have not come in.
Are you planning on, sorry, Mike.
Go ahead, you're right.
Are you planning on a gut redo on this house?
No, not a total guy,
So you're not taking it down to studs?
no.
Okay. Because 30, I mean, seems a little light for,
No,
you
but
know,
if you look on the
a
item-
construction process like that.
Right, and if you look on the items of the estimate,
Sure.
it'll show you that it's calling for skim coat and repairs. Also on there, it lists the professionals that I'm working with. One of them is Lloyd Douglas, who I have a lot of times one approach to redoing something. Lloyd is a preservationist. And it's a little more costly.
Doug Lloyd.
Doug Lloyd?
Huh?
Is it Doug Lloyd?
Lloyd Douglas.
Architect?
From Ottawa?
Yeah.
It'd be Doug Lloyd.
Doug Lloyd?
Yeah.
Well, I've had that backwards the whole time since I met him.
Yeah.
No wonder he's not answering your telephone calls, I guess.
There you go.
Mr. Pettijohn, you're planning on fixing the house to resell or
No.
to lease?
No, I plan on owning it for 30 years. or
Okay.
more.
to,
I plan on being owned by me or maybe someday putting it in my daughter's name
okay.
throughout my life. I don't
Okay.
plan on ever selling it.
But are you planning on living in the property
I
or?
plan on taking up the residence, yes.
Okay.
When do you plan, if you, if you go forward, when would you plan to start?
Yesterday.
And
Why has it been 4 years vacant?
Well, 4 years,
Utilities
the
shut off.
first couple of years, I had a ton of other projects that were higher priority and for investment. I'm sure y'all couldn't read my letter of introduction, but I explained that. And then it was a coincidence last year that when I got the dilapidation notice, that I had planned on, that was the next project after the one at hand then. Well, then the permit issue came up, which we're in disagreement on if it's accurate or not. But anyway, the permit issue came up, and I just went back to work on the property that made me money.
how long do you think it will take for the renovation?
I would say 6 months minimum.
And I guess back to the general contractor question, have you been in contact with any of those general contractors to?
I had contacted about 4 or 5 of them previously, but I had not planned on hiring a general contractor.
Are you a licensed general contractor?
No, sir.
Okay.
But I have been,
Okay.
and if you read my resume, it will show you I'm overly qualified.
Could, Jim, he couldn't do it though, right? Even though he's the property owner though? He still has to hire a general contractor, right?
We do have an internal policy that if you sign away a statement that you intend to live in this structure after the job is complete for a minimum of 1 year, which is, we've kind of used as polling other communities that establishes residency, then we definitely will issue a permit
Okay.
to you.
And-
We've done that for several
Okay.
owners in the city.
And that's your intentions, right? Is to live in it?
Yes.
Just to reaffirm? Okay.
Mr. Crowe, if you
Yeah.
wouldn't mind, we also have had practice in the past that once a hearing's called, and we're to this point, that we have sometimes required a much more detailed plan. Of course, you've seen it, we have not. A very detailed plan with timelines in it, should you elect, after hearing from the neighbors, to give him the time, so that if he fails to meet any of those objectives prior to it, we are not waiting another 6 or 9 months or a year. I'm just hedging in case there's an indication that you might want to give him that time.
And if we proceed to approve the condemnation, he can still apply for a permit, correct? Immediately though, right? And then the time frame on that would be roughly in order?
Whatever you said.
Okay, okay.
Okay. And the enforceability of the 12-month residency, how do we enforce that? Is there any?
Usually there's not a lot out there. We're able to check utilities. One of
Okay.
the beautiful things about Ottawa being a nice, inclusive community like this, we can check on certain things because we're not a community that has separate rural water districts. And we use that as a basis. Because, I mean, we're a small staff, we're not out there knocking on the door and saying, hey, are you home? We're just checking to see.
All right, I got you. That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, again, if you want to, like I said a little while ago, if you want to decide on going the route of renovation versus condemnation, that would be great, and I would be in full cooperation with, as I could be. But if you choose you want to go through with condemnation, then there are quite a few other issues I'd like to bring up before we get there.
Well, we do know condemnation takes quite a few months from, even if we vote for condemnation tonight, we're still, Jim, would you guess 6 to 9 months out from actual?
I mean,
Can I-
maybe you
can I
could think
just
like 30.
Clarify the language, because I think we are talking at cross purposes. A
All right.
condemnation action forces you to begin your project, and if you fail to proceed as described, then the city can remove it. But it is just one action. It just gives you the option of either renovating or removing. Okay, so it's not a one or the other. A condemnation action can take place and still allow for renovation.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about halfway
Another-
renovating? What if we get started and you lose interest again? And you've already, you know, I'm concerned that you haven't dedicated enough funds to bring this house up to code.
I'm sorry?
I'm concerned that, if I heard right, $27,000 is what he's planning on spending,
That's what his budget was, yes.
which is,
I've
can't hardly
done
put
this
a-
for a number of years, and I'm very seldom ever off on my budgets too much. And again, that was going to be closer to 35 before it's complete.
And these
my
price
question
estimates.
is still, excuse me.
Well, go ahead, Lou.
What is our process if he does start, clean up everything, then it goes away, and we don't get in touch with you again for 6 months? Do we start this over?
Maybe an alternative, if it's possible within your authority, is to delay the hearing itself for 30 days and then communicate with Mr. Sherman and see what the progress is.
Wendy, I believe what has been done in the past is a timeline, that if certain milestones aren't met by an X date, then out of compliance and at that time.
Yeah, we have a couple of different choices, and we can work with you on that, whether that is as the owner suggested, a 30-day continuance to see what kind of progress he can make in that time frame, and to be sure that the plan he's produced meets Jim's approval as far as what it would take for the structure to be occupied, with a very detailed plan of that timing. You know, you alluded to 6 months and to have some sort of agreement about that. The alternative is to condemn it and give it 180 days to complete, with a 30-day check back every 30 days for us to see progress towards that timeline, and we can continue to do that. I do think, because we've had a lot of conversation, we want the neighbors to be able to make sure and address you on the timing as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I'm in the dark a little bit. Do I proceed with an
Mr. Mayor.
argument against condemnation, or are we going to go with the?
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that perhaps the other folks can talk, and then maybe that'll clear things
Yeah,
up.
I didn't know if are you finished with what you have to say tonight?
No.
You're not, okay, fair enough. Well, let's see what some other neighbors have to say first. It's still an open hearing.
Okay, and then I may take the floor again?
Yeah, we'll allow that.
Thanks.
Mr. Finch, you have something?
Actually, this is fine procedurally. If you want to hear from the neighbors and then have the owner back up, or you can have the owner complete his remarks and then call up the neighbors.
Okay, if anybody wants to come forward, just state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Trish Peterson. I'm at 421 South Locust across the street, and I am a real estate agent. And I first reached out to Mr. Pettyjohn in the spring of 2017 because I had been approached by someone wanting to purchase the property. And so I have had personal phone calls with him, discussions with him of his intent for the property, which was not to be his personal residence. He wanted to turn it, just like the house next door, turn it into studio apartments for college students, 5 studio apartments for college students. And at that time, in the spring of 2017, he said his plan was to begin in June of 2017. At the time, he said he'd been getting fines from the city for not maintaining the lawn and mowing, and that was a problem. So I actually recommended, my brother-in-law lives a block away, and he's been doing the mowing and taking care of the property for the last 2 years. I don't believe he had ever probably seen Mr. Pettyjohn until just a few weeks ago when all of this started to come down. So all of a sudden, we've seen some things going on around the property. But I reached out to him again this January. My phone records say in January, again offering, someone wanted to offer cash to purchase the property, and he said he'd think about it and get back with me. And then nothing, no contact, nobody there, everything just getting ruined. At the time I contacted him, the first time he gave me permission to go into the house and indicated that it was secured and to use a key that was in a certain location. Back door was open. Anyone could come and go. There, rotten floorboards, animals had been in the house, people had been in the house. And so the conditions were really pretty bad when I went in. It was kind of hazardous to even try to go upstairs. So anyway, we've been watching it deteriorate we've been in our home for 20 years. And, the previous owners were elderly and couldn't take care of it themselves, and it just has been getting bad. They did put a roof on it, but other than that, it's been just kind of becoming more and more dilapidated over the years. So we feel like it's become an eyesore to people who like walking through our historic neighborhood. You see them turn and just look at the house and just, what's going on with that house? And the come-ins and the go-ins, and there's just been different reports of kids getting in there doing things they shouldn't be doing and stuff. It's just time to either deal with it or fix it up or condemn it and get it taken care of because someone else would like that property.
Okay,
Any
thank you, Trish.
questions for me? Or?
Anybody have questions?
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Trish. Anyone else want to speak? Just state your name and address, please.
I'm Chris Husky. I live at 426 South Locust, directly south of this property. Some of the things the statements that the owners made are completely inaccurate. I've been in the house with his permission. There's black mold, there's ceilings collapsed. There's actually a hole in the floor. There's no basement in this structure. It's a crawl space. That enough animals have been in this structure that their skin oil has turned that hole black from coming in and out of that house. We have 7 neighbors present here, 7 households. And one of them has 2 young children. We have to keep them away from that house. It's very dangerous, and there's been windows broken out for many years. I've lived at my address for 18 years. So I too have seen the deterioration of this home. And it's time to move forward. I just think it's ironic that we're 9th inning doing all this. And lastly, I understand there's an ordinance where if the structure is deemed uninhabitable, you're only allowed to spend 50% of the fair market value of the property to fix this. There is no way $30,000 is going to fix this structure. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, Mr. Pettyjohn, do you want to appeal?
First off, I don't know that it's necessary, but in response to Trish's remarks, the comments I made about the property value was that I told her that it was built as a boarding house and that to put a value on it, to sell it, I would base it on 5 or 6 units because it's a boarding house. It was built as a boarding house. It is a boarding house. So the structure, that's how it's designed. And that's what I told her I would base my sale price on if somebody was interested. The neighbor, I'm not sure what hole he's talking about, but I don't know of a hole in the floor exactly which one he's talking about. I'm not aware of any. There's some spots in the ceiling that some of the ceiling has came down. There's a spot where it was taken down for plumbing repairs and never patched back. But the leak problems were before the roof was replaced last time by the previous owner. The debris, a lot of the debris, actually it was his tree fell over and his barbecue pit, and he's knocked his fence over, and it's all in my backyard. And I tried to clean 3 of the last 4 loads I hauled up was from his tree, and what's still there is his tree. And I haven't complained to anybody about that, but yeah, it's just a bit of irony. Now again, if you wish to go with like a 30-day delay or something on a renovation issue without a condemnation, I'm happy to work with that. If not, then I would like to go further on more details.
Well, I just want to clarify, you're not planning to make this into 5 apartments like was mentioned earlier, is that correct? That'd be a zoning issue, wouldn't it, Wendy? We couldn't do that, so that's not what your plan is, right?
No.
Okay. Well, what are options?
Mr. Mayor, if there are more comments that Mr. Pettyjohn needs to make, he needs to make all of those comments at this time, and then the commission can begin its discussion.
Okay, I would like to request that Mr. Sherman identify the predicates that make this building uninhabitable, specific predicates that make it uninhabitable.
Mr. Mayor, it's not a question.
That's actually not something we just.
Gentlemen, it's a public hearing. It's an opportunity not for question and answer or direct or cross-examination. It's an opportunity for Mr. Pettyjohn to make his case about why he doesn't believe the structure should be condemned and lay out any plan that he has. So, Mr. Pettyjohn, there won't be any question and answer this evening. Make your remarks, please, and then the commission can begin its deliberations.
I'm a little limited on space here trying to find a paper. Apologize. Oh, it's in the folder in front. Okay. The note, I'm assuming that the predicate for what brought this forward is the original notice of dilapidation prepared by Oscar Taylor. And if that is the case, there are 5 items noted. Okay, foundation repair, it requires tuck pointing, which that's the limit of it. The porch, the methods of repair on that, and I made an effort to do it, is 2 of the items. Lap siding missing is probably about an hour's worth of work to put in place. And guttering falling off, the gutter has been removed. It was in question, I believe. And I forgot to pass this along. This is the engineer's report on it. And the stamp.
Okay, all right.
Hold on, I have 2 pages.
Okay, all right. Are all these copies we can keep, or are these yours?
Yes, sir, you can keep them.
All right, okay. Let's
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead and just finish up your remarks then.
And if by chance, will they be accessible to Mr. Sherman?
Pardon me?
Will the copies be accessible to
Yes,
Mr.
yeah,
Sherman?
we'll make sure they have them, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, that is it. There's 5 items that were listed as dilapidated. One of them's corrected, the other one's an hour's worth of repair. The other one could be close to 1 day, maybe worth of repair, which is tuck pointing the foundation, and then the porch. And the porch could be repaired within a week. And I was going to try to get started on that, but again, we're on that permit issue.
Of course, this notice of dilapidated structure was dated July of 17. Could there have been more things that have deteriorated since that date? If we've got other issues with black mold or whatever could be inside the structure?
There could be some, there's some sheetrock problems from it and cleanup, but I'm qualified for that also. I get that with fire restorations.
Okay. We'll go ahead and make your closing comments, and then we'll end the hearing.
Okay, well, I would appreciate the opportunity, as I stated, to move forward with the renovation or a 30-day hold and go from that point. And
Okay.
hopefully we'll work together and get something done.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pettijohn.
Thank you for your time.
I guess before I close the hearing, anyone else want to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend you not close the public hearing.
Okay.
If there are no further comments, then I can advise you, and then you can make a decision on what you want to do.
Okay. Any other comments? Anybody have questions? Go ahead and give us.
So, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, you have a couple of options before you this evening. The threshold question is whether you wish to grant additional time prior to condemnation. What Mr. Pettijohn has asked for is essentially a 30-day continuance. As you know, you can continue a public hearing so long as you have not closed it, which would essentially have the effect of granting additional time until your next meeting or until your next night meeting, which would be about a month down the road. The other option, if you choose to, you can choose to deny the condemnation resolution. You won't do that as part of the public hearing. You'll do that as part of the next item. And the third option is if you choose to adopt the condemnation resolution. And then, as Ms. Lee said, you have several options within that that could grant additional time theoretically. So you remember that a condemnation resolution or is a directive that it be cleaned up, repaired, and restored, and if not, it will be removed. Typically, you grant about 30 days for that process to take place. But you can grant additional time. That's certainly within your purview and your authority to do that. If you choose to do that, I think you can have the initial conversation amongst yourselves now while the public hearing is still open. And if you choose to either deny and you don't plan to condemn tonight, or if you do plan to condemn and want to talk about how much time is appropriate, then you can close the public hearing. If you believe that you may want to continue the public hearing and see what progress is made prior to condemnation, we need to make that decision before you close the public hearing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very good.
Can you restate that the condemnation is a notice to repair?
To repair, restore the property, to basically to get busy with whatever renovations are being proposed. And if that does not happen within a set time frame, typically 30 days, then the city is directed to go ahead and remove the structure.
We're still public hearing. You want to say one more question? You come on up here to the microphone.
Okay, for instance, if it was condemned, which I hope it's not, but anyway, what must be repaired is not clearly defined other than a previous notice from a year prior. So that's why I was asking what the predicates for the action was. Because I provided you an estimate that is an extreme amount more that hasn't, and a lot of it has nothing to do with ever being condemned. But I have no idea what I'm facing. I don't know what to argue to say that it should or should not be condemned or should not be fixed, because I don't have a list of what this specific items are.
Right.
So if you condemn it, I don't know how you can tell what must be done by a certain date.
Well, I think
That's
either
all.
way, whether it was gonna be condemned or not, you were planning on a full renovation anyway.
Right, but I bring that up because if you condemn it, then, and he mentions, okay, it could be a 30-day, or you can set a different date or something, but there's nothing defined that says what must be accomplished in that time period that I know of, beyond the first dilapidation paper that was presented the year before.
But I think if you condemned it, and if I'm wrong, if it is condemned, then you'll apply for the permit, and then at that point, the permit will state what you're planning on doing, which will be which will be your full renovation.
Right.
Correct?
But
Okay.
he just mentioned also 30 days. I could apply for a permit to fix the porch and put lap siding on it and fix what was dilapidated on that notice from before and meet the requirements. I plan to do more than that, but that's why I say if you condemn it, you don't have anything defined as to what you're requiring. That's the only point I have.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Commissioners, you'll recall from the memo that was presented to you back on July 12th from Jim Sherman There are findings proposed in that memorandum that would be incorporated into your resolution, which is required by the ordinance. And those include that conditions exist which are dangerous or injurious to the health, safety, or morals of the occupants of such structures. In this case, they're not occupants of this structure, but occupants of surrounding structures. Conditions have a blighting influence on properties in the area. Defects therein increasing the hazards of fire, accidents, or other calamities. General dilapidation, disrepair, structural defects, walls, sidings, or exteriors of a quality and appearance not commensurate with the character of the properties in the neighborhood, and violations of health, fire, building, housing, or zoning regulations. These are all findings that Mr. Sherman has himself, as the building official, made, but encourages you to consider and make as part of your resolution for condemnation. So the term predicates has no legal basis in our ordinances, but you do find in the code a requirement that you issue findings as part of your resolution. And I'll let the Community Development Department speak for themselves, but I think they're asking you to include these findings as part of your resolution. And the 30 days in your ordinance and in the municipal code is they must commence work within 30 days and then diligently prosecute the same. If they would start and stop, as Commissioner Wygand has said, that is, you count that time against the owner and you move ahead with removal. So there is still, to use your ninth inning, there's still the bottom of the ninth. There's still a batter to come to the plate if Mr. Pettyjohn chooses to do that after condemnation. But what a condemnation ensures is that it has to be done swiftly and diligently, and there can't be breaks in the work that's done over there. But there are certainly opportunities, or an opportunity, let me say that. There's two outs, so there's an opportunity at this point if you do decide to condemn.
Okay. Well, just to summarize what I'm hearing here, I sense that the neighborhood would love to see this house fixed up, refurbished, looking nice, just like all the other homes in the neighborhood are looking right now, over an empty lot. But we also need to hold Mr. Pettyjohn's feet to the fire to make sure he completes what he started and is willing to do it in a timely manner. A lot of people are going to be watching what I'm saying. And so I'm guessing it's kind of what the people want, but that's my interpretation of what I've heard tonight. Anybody else have any?
I heard something else. I heard the neighborhood wants this house gone, that it's unsafe, it's dirty. The pictures didn't do it justice. Actually, I've been by it a few times, and in real estate, we love to take pictures and good quality pictures because those help sell houses. But these pictures actually look better than it is. And I have serious concerns about throwing $27,000 to $35,000 at that house and getting anything done to where it would be livable and pass the city code. I also have a concern about it being on the watch list. Actually, the city's been very patient. You've had from 4 to 3 to 2 years of it sitting idle, deteriorating, and now you come to us at the last possible minute to throw some money at it or plead for some time, and I don't trust that. And so that's where I am on that.
Okay. Blake, anything? Nothing? Anything else? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if there does not appear to be consensus that you want to continue the public hearing, then I would say you could close the public hearing and move on to item 12 on the agenda.
Okay. Let's do that. We're going to close the hearing now. Move on to item number 12.
Request for approval of resolution to condemn an unsafe and dangerous single-family structure at 420 South Locust.
This resolution authorizes this governing body to declare the single-family structure located at 420 South Locust to be unsafe or dangerous, and to direct that such structure be demolished or repaired and made safe and secure. Any other comments on that?
I believe the resolution that was provided at the study session indicates that I just had it here a second ago. you want to go on, I can.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. The unsafe structure shall be removed or repaired and made safe and secure by the owner with work commencing within 10 days after the publication of this resolution, and all work shall be completed within 90 days thereafter.
And that's just standard language with us, as our attorney stated earlier. You can augment that, change it. That's just our standard language that we use.
And that's to make it safe and secure. That means repair the windows, repair the porch is unsafe at this time. Or
Well, it depends on how it's strictly commissioned. We're looking at to personally do the neighborhood involvement. We're looking at it to be at a habitable standpoint to where we can turn on utilities. That would mean interior items too, smoke detectors, wiring, plumbing, mechanical systems up to date, drywall, lath and plaster repaired. I'm not asking for, a custom home, but just the minimum basics of habitability, which we definitely work with the owner on to establish that through our adopted codes and standards that we have. But that's what we typically look for, not just an outside, but of course we will work at your pleasure on where you want to go with this. But in our discussion with the neighbors, we were looking at to bring the building to habitability because utilities have been off since 14.
I see.
And we feel that that's one of the items that makes it also a dilapidated structure. Just not having operable utilities doesn't help a structure like that, especially when it is aged in condition.
Mr. Sherman, in the past, we've done this, similar to this, where we've approved the demolition, and yet the individual starts working on the house and then brings it up to where it should be, and nothing is ever demolished then. Is that correct?
Yes, we have several
Examples.
success stories, as I like to call it, success, where we do work with the owner, and it does have a good ending as far as the neighborhood's happy, the structure's rehabbed, but we do encourage some timelines established by the commission, and it's your direction to staff to enforce and make sure those happen at your direction, and we will.
Because we don't come in with a wrecking ball tomorrow, is what you're saying. We
No,
just give it plenty of time.
I personally don't believe that anyway. I think if you say, okay, let's start the rehabilitation, then we should provide some decent benchmarks, and that's why we do the 10 and 90, because it's probably not practical for, as they say, a hammer to start swinging in the next 5 days, because it doesn't.
And we have some safeguards to keep Mr. Pettyjohn's feet to the fire, to what we're saying too, that if he proceeds to start working on this house, there is a timeline, you said, before it has to be done.
Yes, sir. When you set that timeline, we also, as staff, we reach out to them before that benchmark arrives and say, look, we haven't been called for an inspection, where are you at? I'm going to need to present something to either the city manager or the commission on the status, because we're approaching this 30, 60, 90-day period.
Okay. But we've just seen a pattern in the past of Mr. Pettyjohn delaying projects. My wife watches Dr. Phil, and she tells me that story. What is it about that? A predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And I'm just concerned with that, that we could get started with something, and then we end up back here 3 months from now going through the same process. That's my concern.
Well, one of the things we will work with the owner is to identify exactly habitability and let him see the breadth of what it is. It isn't just a skim coat, I think I heard.
Yeah.
You can't apply materials over rotten materials, whether there's an engineer's seal or not. I don't really care what that says. I have my statutes and the codes and the performance of the materials, and there's a lot of work for this structure to become habitable.
Yep.
I don't address the cost analysis. What I can do for 25,000, somebody be able to do for 10. I literally don't, but I know there's a lot of work for this structure, quite a bit.
And, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, if the work is not commenced within the time frame and is not diligent progress being made, the remedy won't be to come back to you. The remedy will be the structure's torn down.
Okay. If we vote to proceed.
Yeah, if you vote for this resolution tonight, it won't be back to you unless there's been significant progress made, and you're talking about needing an additional 30 days to finish up, and you're on the verge of being a great success story. Otherwise, you won't see this matter again. It will be torn down if it's not fixed.
The resolution says something about it directs that the structure be demolished or repaired and made safe and secure. So even if we do pass the resolution, you can make it safe and secure or be demolished.
Yeah, thanks, Blaine. I appreciate that's excellent. In fact, just to give you a heads up, we also, in the advance that you do say it's a condemned and that you have both scenarios, we do go and solicit some demolition contractors so they are aware this might happen. Even though we may be working with the applicant to cover ourselves as far as timeline, we also start our demolition bidding. We have a very tight-knit group of contractors, and they don't mind going out and shooting us some rough bids, and it's on their radar. Even though we hope that it doesn't, we're also not waiting in the ninth inning also for a demolition.
Right.
So I appreciate Blaine's comments about that.
That's a good point. Okay, any other questions anybody have? I entertain a motion on item 12 if there is one.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the request and approve the resolution to condemn
Okay,
the property at 420 South Locust.
is there a second?
Second?
There's a second. Any other discussion on that? If not, let's start with a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes too, the motion carries. Thank you all for all your participation tonight. Yeah, go ahead, quickly.
Well, I never did get clear what a time limit was on this.
Well, we'll get together with the codes department. Just get with them soon. Yeah, they'll get with you on that.
The resolution had a time limit set on it.
You'll get a mail notice of that.
Let's move on to item number 13.
Request for approval of resolution to establish a public hearing for the consideration of condemnation of property located at 415 East 15th.
Now, this resolution establishes a public hearing to be held at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 7th for the consideration of the condemnation of the property located at 415 East 15th. Mr. Sherman.
Good evening. This is another structure that staff has been addressing over a number of years, mostly in exterior blight maintenance. We've been having to basically mow it and trim it. It's one of our probably 15 that we keep an eye on. We've sent out a few notices over the last couple of years. Staff was actually addressing it right before I was hired, and it's easily visible. It's on East 15th Street. It's not occupied, hasn't been occupied for I think at least 8-9 years, possibly longer. This is today's photo, by the way. This is back a couple weeks ago, and that's actually part of the house. It's overgrown. We mow right up to the volunteer trees, but there's some deflections in the wall above the garage. It's just lacked maintenance over the year. The lap siding is rotting. Most of the windows are broken or in disrepair. Siding's falling off. Overgrown, which doesn't help the fact moisture builds, and since it's all wood products, they're not sustainable in long term with this condition. Thank you. The taxes are paid on this, ironically, but the utilities are off. The owners have not been there for some time. We believe one is deceased and the other has moved into another neighboring state. I think we have the ability to contact them, but previous notices have gone unclaimed. And staff still continues. In fact, that photo that we took in the rain this morning, the grass has been sided again. We try not to do it too often, but just enough to where it's not overgrown. Unfortunately, due to the environmental conditions this summer, we haven't had to mow but just a couple times. We anticipate trying to make more contact with family members before the public hearing, but on this one too, staff received a petition from the neighborhood. I would say it's a substantial petition. We're in the 20s in the number of people that signed. It was one of the houses that we kind of were on the edge about anyway, bringing this year, but seeing that we'd received the petition, that we felt compelled to bring it before you for consideration to set the public hearing. It's our recommendation to go ahead and set the public hearing, which initiates staff to start reaching out to the owners, at least the family, to do some file history search, and then And then we'll also make contact back to the neighborhood folks that signed the petition, so we're establishing good communication.
I'm noticing, Jim, on these condemnations, that we're getting more and more public participation and coming forward with signatures. Is that correct than other times?
Yes, actually, these are the first two since I've been here very long, but
Yeah.
it's not a common practice. In many communities, you don't see this much anymore. Most staffs kind of are proactive addressing it, and this was one that if it wasn't going to come before you this year, we were going to bring it to you next year,
fine.
regardless of the petition.
Looked like it might have been a nice house at one time, but like you said,
It's a
maintenance.
large structure, good location as far as but unfortunately, the family's not engaged. They are paying the taxes, but they're not engaged, and it just continues to get worse.
Jim, there's been a car parked in the driveway. Is that a neighbor's car?
We hope so. I haven't felt like bothering the chief yet about that, or Deputy Chief Adam, but we kind of keep an eye on it from time to time just to make sure it's not activity that we do need to advise police on. But we think it's just a neighbor that pulls in there sometimes.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny.
I thought it was your car, Jim. That's okay. All right.
Boy, Jim's diligent. He's parking there during the day now.
Any other questions?
You haven't had any response from any relative, the owner, kind of
No, this one's really quiet.
Hate to,
but we're going to make sure because of that, because I tell you what it is.
somebody paid the taxes.
That's
Surely
that's
to follow that up.
I appreciate that. Thank you. This one reason why taxes are relevant in these cases because it shows a connectivity, somebody that is in contact possibly with either the county, the city. So by the taxes being paid, and by the way, they weren't delinquent either. It's not like it was several years they've been paying. We will do a file search and look for some relative or somebody responsible. It may be a trust. I don't know. It's been a couple years since we knew that one party was deceased and the others not in the region. So we will reach out. I'm just not going to let this happen. And just for that, thank you. That's
Counselor?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this is one, you'll recall when we did the 15th Street sidewalk project several years ago. I had to condemn the easement to put the sidewalk in on this property, and at that time, we could not find anyone either. We were dealing with a probate situation, and I think there's probably a mortgagor out there that's kind of on autopilot that's been paying out of an estate or out of a trust, and we're not really sure at this point how to find someone we can actually get in contact with, because we went through that process there too, and just eventually had to publish notice to try to do our condemnation. We never got any response from any of the mailings we sent back then either, so it's truly one of those where we try, but we just can't seem to get anybody to respond.
Apparently, they're getting the tax notices because they're paying the correct amounts, it sounds like. So.
Yeah, which leads us to believe there's probably an escrow, and I think there is a lien holder in the ownership and encumbrance report, so.
probably.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion on item number 13 then.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 13.
is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's hold a roll call vote then, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitehan?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes too. Motion carries for the resolution. Move on to item number 14.
Request for approval of resolution declaring the eligibility of the City of Ottawa to submit an application for Transportation Alternatives Program funds and authorizing the mayor to sign the application.
It's quite a mouthful there. I'm glad you had to read that. This grant program is through the Kansas Department of Transportation. Funds received through the program will be used for the K68 Main Street Multimodal Enhancement Project. Wendy.
Good evening. Just wanted to do a quick, sorry, we have to wait just a second. A quick update on this Transportation Alternatives project. Transportation Alternatives is the funding mechanism in which we did both the East and West 15th Street, since we just talked about that. This time, after you all made the determination which of the projects you wanted to proceed with, staff has been working with a consultant to come up with the estimates for the project, and Just for the public's sake, wanted to show the image of the proposal, which is sidewalks on both sides, north and south side of K68, east of Main, sidewalk west of Main from Main to Forest Park, trail connection from K68 south to the depot for the connection of the Prairie Spirit Rail Trail, and a sidewalk south of K68 on the west side of Main to Tecumseh. And that's what's illustrated here on this image. Sorry, I guess they told me I could turn the light on, and then I still didn't do it. So the Transportation Alternatives Program is one that is funded through the Department of Transportation, and it's an 80-20 project, which means that of the construction costs, the state will pay 80%, the city would pay 20%. In addition to that, the city is responsible for engineering any utility relocation or any land acquisition. The total project, as estimated by our engineer, is $488,972. The construction portion would be, KDOT's 80% would represent just over $351,000. The city share would be $87,862. In addition to that, we'd have just under $50,000 worth of surveying and engineering expenses. To date, we've had 7 letters of support. We have a few more coming in. The application is 95% complete. We did provide to you the narratives and the major objectives that would be achieved if we're able to proceed with the project would be that it would connect our major networks, both pedestrian and bicycle routes, along a major network of connections on Main and K68 for motor vehicles. It does have community support. It significantly enhances safety because there are some of those locations where people are walking alongside the road, and depending on the weather, maybe on one side of the curb or the other. It is consistent, these are probably the most significant for a planner, like I am, that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan, our bike ped plan, our master park plan, along with KDOT's long-range transportation plan, KDOT's bicycle network plan, and the Kansas Rails to Trails plan, all of which talk a great deal about alternative transportation connections, improved safety. We have letters of support from the school district because of the locations of our schools. We have support from some of the neighbors, etc. So we would request that you authorize through the adoption of the resolution that you are indicating your support, and that the governing body or the organization will pledge to pay those 2 amounts that I mentioned to you earlier, the design and surveying costs of just under $50,000, which we would anticipate in the 2019 budget, and that the city share of construction, just under $90,000, would be paid probably out of the 2020 budget. But by that point, we would know what funding or what mechanism we were going to do that with if awarded. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Anybody have any questions?
So it's really going to cost us $137,000, which
Yes.
is about a third, a little over a third, 40% of the cost of the
Total.
project instead of 20.
Right, it's 20 of the construction,
Yeah.
and then we have to pay in advance expenses as well.
That's great.
The construction prices can go down, but the design is fixed. Is that a bid?
No, we would end up with a contract, and probably, most often, design is really a factor of the project, at least a lot of times for both architecture and engineering. The survey work, we would get, depending on whether or not we wanted to go out for bids for the design or not, well, we would have a contract that would set that. And the construction could go down or up, and just on that point, if it goes down, then it's still an 80-20 match. If it were to go up, we would have the option of changing the project. Let's say the project came in at $400,000. The state would give us the opportunity to decide whether we want to proceed, whether we want to change the project in some manner, or whether we want to not. And I know internally, Mike and I have, if we start to see the project during design looks like it's going to exceed our initial budget, we would probably remove one of the sidewalks, probably remove the sidewalk that is east of Main on the north side of K-68, because those residents can use Logan to get to Main, whereas the residents on the south side of K-68 would have to cross K-68 and go west on Logan and come back down. So we have some options on how we could adjust should the project have some expenses that exceed our anticipation.
Okay.
I know I can look out my office window and see a significant portion of this area, and I know Eric can as well. And there is people that use that, both bicycles and pedestrians, and in order to make that safer, that's probably one of the highest traffic intersections in the community. And we took it to a certain step by putting crosswalks there in the recent stoplight upgrade, and then connecting this area with what we've already put in the trails makes a lot of sense to me.
We had feedback from the folks at one of the intersections a lot about that. We have had additional feedback from the co-op about the unsafe experiences people are having at Tecumseh.
Right.
In addition to that, the depot has shared with us the number of people that continue as if the trail goes north of the depot to K-68. And the folks at CarShare told me then people cut and go through. So there is probably more pedestrian and bicycle traffic than we all understood before we started asking the question.
Very good. Any other questions? Michael, do you have anything to add to that? Your name was on the list here, but if you had anything to add, why?
Not really, Mayor.
Okay.
Wendy and I both attended the workshop for this grant.
Okay.
And due to my absence for my other job, Wendy kind of took the lead on this for me. So
Sure.
I really appreciate that. But this project will really connect the north and south sides of town, so.
I agree, I think it's good. And I appreciate your service in your other job, too. Don't want to forget that. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion on item number 14, then.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I would make a motion to approve that request
Okay.
for funding.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Okay, any other discussion? If not, let's do a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thank you both for your work on that. It's good. Item number 15.
Request for approval of ordinance amending Chapter 12, Article 3 of Municipal Code for reserved parking.
This amends reserved parking in the area of a courthouse square apartments. And Adam, you got it.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Chief Butler has presented and prepared a memorandum for you outlining some requested amendments to the parking ordinance, specifically relating to parking in the central business district for reserved parking area. And what we ran into is an issue with parking permits related specifically to Courthouse Square apartments, where some of the residents were parking over on the Main Street side instead of in front of the building on the north side of 3rd Street, which is their designated parking area for residents of Courthouse Square apartments. Residents that live in the central business district can apply for and purchase a parking permit that allows them to park in excess of the 2-hour limit that's in place for anyone else who doesn't live in that area. So this ordinance just cleans up some of that language in there, identifies that 9 permits will be issued for residents of Courthouse Square apartments that will be issued by the management company of that particular business, and if that management business ever changes, those permits will continue to follow at 9. So it doesn't specify any further than that. And
Okay.
one of the other issues that occurred is residents had been issued those central business district resident parking stickers in error, and we have corrected that and hope that it won't happen again in the future, and this amendment to the ordinance just helps us do that a little bit better.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this one?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner,
I move to approve the ordinance as described in item 15 of the agenda.
is there a second?
I'll second.
There is a second. Any other discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Move on to item number 16.
Request for approval of ordinance revising 2018 Uniform Public Offense Code, UPOC.
And staff recommends approval of revisions to the ordinance as outlined in the memo. Adam.
Each year, the Kansas legislature updates the criminal ordinances for the state of Kansas. Municipalities such as Ottawa adopt what's called the Uniform Public Offense Code, which mirrors state law and allows our local police officers to enforce state law through our municipal courts. This is just a summary of those legislative changes that are put in place after July 1st of each year, and upon approval, we will issue these new books to our officers so they can enforce the latest state laws that the Kansas legislature has passed.
Okay. Any other questions on this? I'll entertain a motion on item 16 then.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
I got it. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygant?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thank you, Adam. 17.
Request for approval of ordinance revising the 2018 Standard Traffic Ordinance, STO.
Staff recommends approval of revisions to ordinances outlined in the memo. Adam.
Same thing as the Uniform Public Code, but related to specifically traffic enforcement and traffic regulations, including such offenses as speeding, DUI, driving with suspended license, and registrations.
Very good. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to approve the ordinance as described in item 17 of the agenda.
The second?
I'll second it.
Okay, take your pick there. Any other discussion? Let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygant?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, for a good job. We'll go on to item number 18.
Request for approval of ordinance rezoning an area within the city of Ottawa and repealing the corresponding section of zoning map in ordinance 3501-05.
Planning Commission has reviewed and recommends approval of the ordinance. This ordinance would rezone property at 2573 US 59 Highway from R1 Low Density Residential District to R1 PPDO Low Density Residential with Proximity Park Development Overlay District. It would also rezone properties at 2723 Kingman Road, quite a few other properties on US 59 Highway, 207 East 27th and 2640 Granger Drive from C3 General Commercial District to C3 PPDO General Commercial District with Proximity Park Development Overlay District. And I'm glad I'm done with that. So Wendy, why don't
It
you-
is a long heading, isn't it?
Wow, yeah.
And so, yes, Commissioner, so we, the Planning Commission called a hearing to consider the overlay district placement on those tracks, as you mentioned. And at the public hearing, we had two property owners represented, and they had some concerns about some of the language in the 12A overlay district. The Planning Commission then continued the hearing and asked staff to take a look at the questions and concerns that were expressed by those folks that represented the property. Staff then suggested some revisions to the 12A. The Planning Commission, we held a hearing, they agreed, we forwarded those to you. You adopted them at your last meeting. And we felt that after the revisions were in place, that the overlay district was then appropriate for all of these parcels. One of those two property owners has indicated agreement that resolved their concerns. The other had continued to ask some questions and indicate that they were not supportive of the overlay for their parcel. The Planning Commission addressed some of those comments in that continued hearing. They felt that the overlay district was still important for the overall development of that area, and that in order for the area to have a consistency in how the ordinances would be applied and how the development going forward would be expected to look and fit in the vision plan that was adopted for that entire area south of I-35 from about the Prairie Spirit Rail Trail beyond Montana and south beyond just a bit of Kingman as well. That having the overlay district was was better. One of the changes, or one of the concerns that was expressed in that original hearing, was that if a property were to see some development, would they have an ability to ask that the planning commission or whomever, when the site plan comes in, for some consideration. And one of the changes that we made was to more clearly articulate that they could request an exception to the standards that were outlined in that overlay district at that time. And that hopefully, by making it very clear, that process, and that it applied to all of those standards, that would alleviate any concerns at this time. However, it did not, and this city clerk received a protest petition on this rezoning, and that requires you then to take that into account in addition to the Planning Commission and staff recommendation. Because the Planning Commission recommendation is to approve the rezonings, the overlay district being applied, it would take a 3/4 majority vote, or in this case, Mr. City Attorney, I think it would take all 4 of you to concur with that action in order for this action to move forward. You also have the alternative of you can deny the request to place the overlay on the parcels that are abutting US 59. Or your third alternative is you can remand the matter back to the Planning Commission for further consideration. We would ask that if you choose to do that, that you provide clear direction about what consideration it is that you would like the Planning Commission to take. If you felt there was something that was failed to have been addressed, then we'd like you to give that direction to them so that they can clearly understand what it is that you might like them to do. Having said that, staff and the Planning Commission do recommend adoption of this in order to carry out the vision of that area from the community, and that's the community and the county, because that was a wider vision plan than just the cities.
Okay, can you just give us a brief overview of what the advantage of an overlay district versus none?
Well, when the community, and that includes the governing bodies and members of the community, originally began contemplating the development of a new industrial park, there were tours taken of other communities. There was a lot of discussion about what kinds of development we would like out there, and how would we like that to look. And there was a clear direction at that time that we wanted what would be considered today to be more of a state-of-the-art industrial park, not the old-fashioned, you can do pretty much anything as long as it's on your own property. That there needed to be a very clear direction about the kinds of improvements, and that included the public improvements, sidewalk, street improvements, etc. So for example, and as an illustration, when we developed the North Industrial Park many years ago, we had a rock road. We had no sidewalks, and we had all different kinds of building construction types. The vision that we anticipated following visiting some of those other communities is that we would be investing in curb and gutter, we would have sidewalks and trails, we would have a clear planting plan, we would have a consistent signage, that there would be a very attractive development to recruit businesses to. While we have site planning standards, there's not very much out there right now to build two that you could build consistently. It's not as if it's downtown where we have a very strong form, height, window coverings, type of materials, etc. We have mostly vacant land. One commercial operation at the south end owned by Mr. Fogel, and then an RV dealership, a residence, a cemetery, and another commercial operation on the north end. Across the road's been in transition now for some time across to the west, and across to the south we have another small operation and a bunch of farm ground. But if you were to look at the totality excuse me, of the land that was envisioned, that was a part of that vision plan, the majority is farm ground. And as a result, there's not a real clear indication of what would the expectation be. And so as we discussed in the planning commission meeting, both for the potential investors in the industrial park as well as anyone who might acquire ground, to understand what would be expected of their neighbors, you wouldn't really have much to settle on. And it was felt, and the planning commission concurred and had a number of statements to the effect that they would believe that that would present a better likelihood that there would be good, strong expectations before someone were to acquire, that by having a 12A, Article 12A that we're applying here, that someone could review those standards and have a good idea what it would be that would be expected of them, whether they're on commercial ground, industrial ground, light industrial ground, or even the public potential zoning, which was also a part of that vision, so that there wouldn't be confusion about those expectations. There was some question about whether it applied to the existing property. It does not. And just as in any circumstance, if a storm were to come through and destroy property that's already been developed here or anywhere else in the community, at that point, there would have to be some consideration about what would have to come back and to what level. That is a consideration that takes place when and if some kind of major event like that were to occur. And there are alternatives that could be explored at that time. But at this time, what we were asking for and suggesting was that we set the tone of what that entire area out there would look like. And the reason that staff suggested this was because we felt we had a clear directive from the city and the county after what's somewhere near $30 million worth of investment, that the property, as it is a gateway to the community, both going south and north, present the very best, most positive foot forward that we could.
Okay, very good. Good answer. Thank you. Any other questions?
I got a question, a couple of comments and a question. The 2723 Kingman Road, and then you've got 25, 71, 91, 95, 97, 99, 159. What's the 2723 Kingman Road? That would be, where would that be? That'd be Mr. Fogel's, like where you've got your maintenance building back there?
No, the whole thing.
The whole thing? Then the Highway 59, is that, does that start at Love's and go south to the corner of Kingman and 59?
So the 2601, that is the parcel there at Love's, that kind of area, the Granger parcel. 27 East 27th, I think, is actually technically the Love's because it's 8 acres. 2640 is probably, I believe it's that tiny little parcel right at the intersection of 27th and US 59. And then there's a couple parcels. We have the fireworks building, the cemetery, the residence.
Okay, so those are all. And then the comment is rezoning from low-density residential to this higher level of zoning, but and then your new zoning, though, is still is low density. It seems to me that property out in there, because of the industrial park, would be ideal for multifamily. I could see an apartment complex out there, a multi-story apartment complex. So that would be permissible if you rezoned and that kind of thing, or should you do it now?
Actually, the overlay was not in any way trying to change the underlying zoning.
Okay.
If we, or the owner, felt that the underlying zoning needed to be reviewed, then we would call another hearing. These were the zoning districts that when the city went, when the area was annexed, and then we did our annexation or zoning outside the city limits. Some of this was outside at that time too. This is the zoning that was placed on them. There is an existing residence out there, hence the R1.
I understand that now that it's just an overlay over the present
We did
zoning.
used to have it in our long-range plan with multifamily. Our current vision plan that is adopted does not show any residential in any of this area. However, we are talking very large pieces of ground, okay, on some of these. If someone came back with a plan and they were subdividing, doing their developments, all of that, and they were to consider multifamily, yes, I think it would probably fit once you were down to a smaller parcel and had that identified. But because these are significantly large, for the most part, Now, there's a few 1 and 2 and 3 acres in there, but there's also 70, 60, those kind of large tracts where, yeah, you might end up with some multifamily. And our old comp plan actually did show multifamily. And just like we have residential near our current industrial park, there is a lot of movement towards being able to use alternative transportation to get to work. And just like you could have a hotel, you might end up with a multifamily structure, very similar in nature. But at this time, we did not change the underlying zoning.
Okay.
And it does not, any of this does not change the uses of land that are there today, could be there tomorrow. None of that was changed by the enactment of what we're asking you to do. This is just the overlay, really setting the standards of how the development would occur, not the uses of land.
And that's whether or not there's development at Proximity Park. Let's say this area develops before Proximity Park, they would be subject to the same kind of covenants as Proximity Park would be.
Yeah, Proximity
Guidelines.
Park has covenants. The remainder of the ground and division plan was expected to have this overlay created. And this is, we, as we told you in our study sessions, that idea is something that we encountered when we began looking at some of the other communities and how they approached the situation. We had not done this kind of an overlay before. However, overlays are not that uncommon for us. We have an overlay that allows for a higher density residential. We have an overlay that deals with the airport. We have a historical opportunity overlay. So we have overlays so that it's not about the uses, but it's about how. So that's what this is too. It's about how the development would go forward. Gives them some opportunities, but it also has some constraints.
Good. Okay, other questions? Okay, thanks, Wendy. Yes, if you have a few comments, come on up to the podium, Ted. Just state your name and we'll get you going.
Yeah, my name's Ted Fogel. I live at 1521 South Maple here in Ottawa. And I got some problems with this. I did some research on it and spent quite a bit of time talking to a number of people, and of course I filed out a petition, to protest it, because I think it's flawed in a number of ways. First of all, this is not vacant land. There's buildings there and businesses. If it was vacant land, I could see it. And the problem I have is that our building would be non-conforming if it like 51% got destroyed. We hired an architect and an engineer when we built that building, and we got permits to build it, and it passed. And we had an occupancy permit for both residential and commercial to use that building, which had hung in that building all the time that we had it. So now we're saying, if something was to happen to it, we couldn't build it back if it's over 51%, because it's non-conforming. Well, how would you like that if you were a banker and you had a mortgage on it? How would you like it if you were an insurance company? They would not like that at all, because if it got 60% destroyed, and all of a sudden, what would they do? And then there's another thing. I can't compete with the city, because you're going to have to do a lot to sell you. There's a number of other cities that are doing this, and some of them haven't been able to find anybody. They're sitting vacant, and they don't know what they're going to do. We've been through 3 different salespeople trying to sell it. Have they sold anything? I don't think so. It's a hard sell, and you're going to have to do a lot and give them a lot, to do it. And I can't afford to do it. I'll be competing with you. And another thing, you didn't do it to Moores or anybody else. You just did it to us. To be fair, you'd have to do it to everybody around there. You're picking and choosing who you did it. That's not fair. What happened is, commercial people want to build, they want to build their store. they just go right over the moors, they jump right over, and you'll hook them up. And the bigger businesses always go buy farmland. Look at Walmart, look at all the rest of them. They go buy farmland, and pay $3,000 an acre, or $5,000 an acre. Just be like Walmart or any of the other big places. So I don't know how many people you're gonna be able to sell. There's a big article on the TV about up there at Leavenworth. They built one, now they can't sell them. They're in trouble on it. So I don't know, and it's kind of scary because I'm not going to be around here probably when it happens. We put everything into a trust for our kids, but none of them live here. They all moved away. They live in California and North Carolina and other places, And so I really don't want you to do this to my property. I can't speak for anybody else, but I think if anybody wants to come in there commercially, they're probably going to look for someplace else because they're not going to be told what color they're going to paint their building or what kind of construction it's going to be. It's going to be really, and this is going to probably something that's going to last for a long time.
I had a question, just something about the moors. I didn't catch what you were saying
Well,
about.
we're on the other side of the street.
Is that
The more family.
Oh, on the moor fan, is that
Yeah, I mean,
include?
if you're going to do it, at least you could do it.
Okay.
Everybody, just
Well-
don't pick and choose, just a few of us, But
Mr. Mayor.
Another thing I want to say before I leave.
Okay, go ahead, Ted. Finish up here.
Yeah. We had 2 fires last summer when it was really dry, and the rural fire department come out and put one out. It burnt from Kingman Road and got into a bunch of our cedar trees that were nursery stock, And it was a major, major fire. Well, they come out and put that out, and then I don't know who set the other one, how it got set. That might have been a cigarette. But the second one was on the other side of the creek. Every year I have a problem. People come, the same people come shoot fireworks off that bridge down there. And I tell them, you can't do this inside the city, and you're gonna catch the place on fire. Well, apparently they caught it on fire. If it's just lucky it didn't burn all the way to highway to Interstate 35.
Yeah.
You can't get in there to put it out. I mean, it's just nothing but a jungle all the way.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we're gonna do when we're gonna have to do something, after we get this all done, because I'm not gonna be able to do much over on the other side. I can't get there at all right now. I haven't been for several months.
All right.
And, it's just gonna be a real problem trying to maintain it. And I got own a half a mile of Kingman Road and a quarter of a mile of 59.
Okay.
And it's gotten to be a real problem if you go out there and take a look. I mean, I apologize, I haven't been able to do like I should be able to do, because I got stakes driven every place. And I got, everything's all tore up right now, and I understand that.
It's gonna take a while, yeah.
It's tore up for a while.
Okay.
So, but we do like to keep it, we like to keep our property looking good.
I appreciate that. Okay, Ted, thank you.
Yeah.
Why don't you stick around? We're going to talk a little bit more. Counselor has something to say, first of all.
No, the second issue that Mr. Fogel brought up contains in it the answer to the first question. Why not the moors? Why not the other properties around the area? They're not in the city. As you recall, the city doesn't have any extraterritorial zoning authority any longer, and we can't apply that overlay district until those properties are annexed. But the intention is once those properties are annexed, in order to take city utilities, they'll have to be, and they're frankly not developable without city utilities at this point, then they'll have to consent to annexation and will be zoned with the overlay district, which will apply to the area around Proximity Park as well as to the properties currently within the city.
I want to say one more thing before I leave. That building that I'm most interested in is where the car dealership is there. Now, I built that for my wife because we're displaced over across the street. It's a little bit different because we got displaced when we're over there where the ready mix is now. The state sent down 2 attorneys, or 2 people from, I don't know if they're attorneys or not, from Topeka, met with me and Mike, the attorney, in 1995, and told us that we had to leave because it cost too much to hook up the sewer, which they promised to do. It was over $500,000. They weren't going to do it. So they told us we had to find another location. Well, we didn't move for 5 years because I had a lot of, we did a lot of work on state highways and bridges and stuff that way. We had several $1 million worth of contracts that we had to finish, which, you know, takes sometimes a number of years to finish those contracts. So anyway, we did, and we had another problem with the land because it basically was kind of landlocked because they didn't build a service road that they built to the 3 acres that TK Enterprises. They were 100 foot short. They built it to where Mrs. Selby had sold that to Doc Lyons on their contract for deed, and they wanted me to, I went and bought his contract out, but Mrs. Selby wouldn't allow me to pay it off. She said she'd gotten legal information to not do it, so that left me where I couldn't sell it for 5 years. So there's a 5-year delay between the time they told me that and the time we left, and I built that building for Karen.
Okay.
And that turned into something else. I don't have time to tell you all about it.
No, that's fine.
Anyway, but that's why that was there. And what we did is we rented porta potties, and we used porta potties for 5 years. But most of our people didn't work there. We only had about 10 people that worked there on site. We had about 3 or 4 people in the office, 3 or 4 in the shop, who we run it 24 hours a day, and then we had a couple down at the ice
Okay.
plants.
Well, we need to kind of stay on the topic here. We're talking about the overlay district here, so is that,
Yeah.
are y'all
Well, that's
finished?
what led up to this here.
But the building
That's
across
what-
the road there,
That's why
okay.
this all happened. That's
From
how
Kingman.
this came about.
All right.
We bought this land over here for Karen's
That's good.
business, Twin
Okay.
Pines. We
All
couldn't
right.
find a place to TK Enterprises.
Okay.
Every place we went wasn't suitable. Somebody was following us around, filing lawsuits or
All right.
on some of it, so.
Well, thanks, Ted.
Yeah.
I do have some questions, though. Is it accurate about the 51%, Wendy? If 51% of his building was destroyed, they'd have to comply with the overlay district then? Or is it not grandfathered in?
Excuse me, Seth.
Yeah.
So as I said before, the use is one thing, the building is a second. The building is different than the zoning regulations as far as, there are complications with his building that has a lot to do with the buildings code. But my point was that if a building is destroyed and there is some kind of question as to how would it be rebuilt and what would the overlay look like, that's when we'd handle the question. When the situation presents itself. That's true now. So for example, we had a billboard that was destroyed several years ago. When it was destroyed, then we started communicating with the owner to see what could be done. Not trying to anticipate. You can't anticipate every question because you don't know how the extent of the damage. And just like any new building, we've already created an opportunity for the discussion to occur, whether it's a new building or a restoration of an existing building, if there's a question about how a standard would apply, given what we know at that time. What's the proposed use? That's probably going to have more of an indicator than any other thing.
Okay. All right. I think clarify that. Thank you.
Any questions?
I don't have any more. Anybody else?
Okay.
Okay, we're good. Thank you, Ted.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions of anyone else here? Legal? Wendy? If not, entertain a motion on item number 18.
You know, I have if this, I don't think we should do anything that would obviously or contingently, is that a word, contingently? Devalue property. And I don't see this happening, Ted, that an overlay would hurt. I think it would add value to your property and make it attractive to higher quality development. And I think I'm betting, and we're all betting, that Proximity Park is a success. We've landed some nice employers out there, and that will add value to yours. will have to drive by yours and use yours in some manner. So I don't feel like that this will anyway devalue or cause you any lasting economic damage. So I just don't see that. And I could be wrong, but I think the overlay will add value to you. I think it'll add value to Ottawa, and I think it'll add value to Proximity Park. So that's really all I have to say. I'm not sure I'm ready for a motion or not.
Good point, Tom. And I think it is hypothetical to assume something will happen to your building, so I'm just kind of thinking we can kind of, when we get to that point, I guess it'll be a different issue, but it's speculative to say we need to do something now on that issue. But Tom, you've been in commercial real estate how long?
29 years, I'm afraid to say.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. I just think I value your opinion is what I'm saying, and I think you got some good points what you made. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner.
I do agree with the statements that Tom said as well. And for that reason, I do move for approval of the ordinance as described in item 18 of the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any other discussion? The only question I would have, on the Planning Commission, they voted how on this? Did you mention that? I might have missed that.
They voted unanimously in favor.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
And I vote yes, too. The motion carries. Thank you all for your input. We'll move on to item number 19.
Request for approval of ordinance granting a conditional use permit to allow a bed and breakfast at 704 South Cedar in an R2 medium-density residential district.
The Planning Commission has reviewed and recommends approval of the ordinance. And Wendy?
So the owners of the property at 704 South Cedar have proposed a bed and breakfast. They would have 3 rooms, and they have adequate parking on site for those rooms to be rented out. They reside there. We held a public hearing. There were no public comments other than the owners. And the Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of the conditional use permit.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Is it true they're going to call it the Shady Rest? Is that right?
I don't think so.
Uncle Joe back there?
I don't know what they're going to call it.
Okay, all right.
My kids always called that the Crayola House, so that's
Here's a name.
yeah.
Painted lady.
Painted Lady, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is a great use for that property, and I'm excited to have that type of a venue in our community. Therefore, I move to approve the ordinance as described in item 19.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any other discussion on that? Steve, you have anything to say or address? Not yet. You're good? Not yet? Okay.
Could be too late pretty soon.
No other discussion? Let's take a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes, too. The motion carries. So thanks, Steve, for your patience. Guess we put you on 19. We should have put you 1 or 2. I'm sorry, but you can go home and go to bed now. All right, move on to item number 20.
Request for approval of resolution accepting public improvements on South King Street.
This resolution accepts public improvements, including the building of a new road for Holiday Inn, storm drainage system, and sidewalk associated with Leisure Addition. And Wendy again.
Last but not least, the road is actually not just for the Holiday Inn, although that project, the Leisure Addition, is the funder of the project because it was a part of what they were doing in order to develop the parcel. It actually benefits Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, H&R, as well as the site for the Arby's, the hotel, and then the balance of the ground that's on the west side of this road. What we're asking you to do tonight is to accept the improvements. The city staff and city engineer have signed off on those improvements. They were inspected as the project went along, and they have completed the punch list. The improvements are the sidewalk, the stormwater, and the street. Once you've accepted those improvements, then the city will be responsible for maintenance.
Okay, any other questions on this?
Just to be, to reinforce, the street was paid for by the developer.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Good question. Anybody else?
I
No.
move we accept those improvements.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Any other discussion? Let's do our last roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Weigand?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Mayor Skidmore?
I vote yes to the motion carries. So thanks, Wendy, for your work on that. Let's go on to item from the city manager's report.
So Commissioners, I appreciate you giving me an hour to give my report.
We can kill that minute.
I'm kidding. So, first thing I want to tell you is that as the neighborhood went out this evening, I and Mr. Sherman went out there. I wanted Mr. Sherman to explain to them how the process works from here. But they are deeply appreciative that you listen to them. And so it is always special to me when we see a neighborhood show up and they go to the extent of giving you a petition. And I think that that bears any governing body to listen to the neighborhood about what's going on in their home, at where their houses are. And you did that, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I just want to do a reminder that we are in year 3 of our sewer rate increase, sanitary sewer rate increase, which will go out on the next bills. That we increase it 15 cents per 100 cubic feet. It will go to $3.21. And on residential, what we do, we actually average that bill. We use December, January, February, and March, because that's when the lowest amount of water is used on residential. So that was a plan that the commission put in order 3 years ago to kind of help bring the balances to where we needed to have them. So I just wanted to make that announcement, remind you. Finance will be running bills tomorrow, and we'll be putting a notice on the bill reminding people, and we will do some social media work also.
What's the percentage of increase, Richard?
Pardon?
What was the percentage of increase?
It's 15 cents per 100 cubic feet. We were at 306, and it goes to 321 for residential.
Okay, fine.
So that answer your question?
Yep.
Arby's, there will be a ribbon cutting, a groundbreaking on the 21st, so you can mark that off your card.
Where do we show up on that? I never have figured out where Arby's is going. Is that out on the highway?
South of HR block.
King Street, park on King.
Yeah, just come on King Street.
Back on the new highway.
Enjoy the new street, come on King Street. And we'll make sure that you have directions and the public knows where we're going out there. And then, we'll make sure you have the right day and time too. So, and then, I think it is safe to say, from some conversations I've had in City Hall, that you will start seeing action come back on the new motel. So I can't tell you when, can't tell you when it is. I just know there have been some conversations that indicate it, hopefully it should be starting back up soon. So that's all I have, Commissioner.
Good, okay. How about the commissioners? Eric, anything?
I have none.
And Blake?
Nothing tonight.
Tom? I just want to say, I think the city is making our city look great. We've got a big show this weekend with the tractor show and the car show following, so I just appreciate the city crew's been out keeping our city looking beautiful and clean, and I think it's great to have those first impressions. They're very important, so thanks you guys for all your work you do out there and keeping our city looking nice.
Good timing to get everything rinsed off too.
You did good on that too, yeah, so. That's right, yeah. We'll get that leveled off, I'm sure. Everybody's concerned about that. We'll be okay, I tell them. I think we do need to have an executive session. Is that correct, Richard? Everybody?
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. I don't know if you want to make the announcements first. There will be no action taken following that executive session, so all we would need to do is come back in from that and then adjourn the meeting.
Well, let's do the announcements then. We got the retirement for Scott Bird between 2 and 4 tomorrow. And then we have study session on Monday. Then we have another retirement for Troy Gavel between 2 and 4 on the 4th. What, these people younger me than retiring, I can't figure this one out. This is getting to be kind of concerning to me. I got in the wrong business, I guess.
They took away jobs.
Study session the 17th and regular meeting on the 19th. So is there a motion to go into executive session at this
I
point?
so move.
And Mr. Wilton?
And let's go ahead and clarify it all.
That will be for attorney-client privilege for the purpose of confidential communications with the board's attorney. Would ask that the board and city manager and city attorney be present for a period of 15 minutes. Let you go in and come out about 10 after 9.
Okay. Is that your motion, Tom?
Yes,
Okay, good.
exactly.
You said it right.
Exactly right.
And was there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. We're moving to executive session then. Thank you.